inside the WCBL studios for another edition, our sixth episode of the WCBL Report. Can't believe we're already 6 weeks into this season. This is crazy. I'm Clark Monroe here for IKS Media. Appreciate you joining us today. Obviously, a big show today, including the big spotlight of today's show is that we are going to announce the East and West All-Star rosters for the All-Star Game on July 19th. And to help me do that today, of course, as always, is my All-Star of a co-host, Joe McFarland. Joe, thanks for joining us today. I know you're out in Lake Country right now, so I appreciate you spending some time with us to talk about the WCBL.
I wouldn't miss it for the world, Clark. Let's get to it.
All right, sounds good. Well, before we do that, of course, we have to do a quick look around the league. This is the WCBL report after all. So let's have a look at Monday's scores. It was a tight night on Monday night. A lot of close games. The Saskatoon Berries beat the Moose Jaw Miller Express 4-3. The Regina Red Sox on the road beat the Weyburn Beavers 4-3. And then Lethbridge took one from Brooks at home 4-1. And then on Tuesday, a little bit more wide open on Tuesday. 9-8 win on the road. Now, this is a big one for Moose Jaw. Not only do they inch a little bit closer to Regina, but they're only the second team this season to beat Saskatoon at home. So a big win for Moose Jaw there. 17-1 for Regina over Swift Current. That was a big one for them. They need to start stringing some wins together. We'll talk about that in a second. Why? Medicine Hat with a 19-6 win over Weyburn. Those two teams, as we're recording this, they played a night on Wednesday night as well. So another rematch coming there. Sylvan Lake 8-6. They snuck one out on the road in Brooks at Elks Field. Fort McMurray, technically on the road, but not at all. They're actually at home. Energy City was the home team, but Fort Mac with a 5-2 win. That's huge, and we'll show you why in a second. And then Lethbridge with a massive 7-6 win in Okotoks against the Dogs. So, Joe, let's look at the standings and why some of those games are important. The big ones that I wanted to point out was that Fort Mac win over Energy City because they're chasing them in the West Division. That Lethbridge win over Okotoks because they're chasing them in the West Division as well at the top of the standings. And then over in the East, that Moose Jaw win over Saskatoon and why that's important. But go ahead, Joe. Why don't you tell us why some of those games are important?
Well, I think the big thing when you look at these standings is you're starting to see that differentiation a little bit. Those top three teams are really starting to spread their wings and fly a little bit in both divisions, to be honest. There's that 6.5 game stretch between Sylvan Lake and Energy City. And so you can kind of pencil them in, I think, at this point, barring some sort of either miracle coming from above or one of these teams dropping off the map in the last month or so of the season here. It's a little bit closer in the East, obviously. And Moose Jaw, it's kind of fits in spurts almost, but they've made some interesting transactions lately. They've added a couple of pieces. Ethan Merck is back as an example. They know that all they need to do is sneak in, and they want to make sure that that differential between them and Weyburn State holds true as well. So, and Medicine Hat's not going away from Saskatoon anytime soon. So, I mean, you're starting to see the playoff picture start to figure itself out a little bit. But even in the West, 2.5 games separating first place from third place. Everybody's really kind of scrounging for playoff seeding right now, and obviously that home field advantage.
Yeah, it's going to be exciting. And obviously, again, we're recording this on Wednesday. Spoiler alert, we're breaking the fourth wall a little bit here, Joe. Sorry about that for everyone listening on Thursday, of course. But there's a huge game tonight as we're recording this, as Sylvan Lake is in Okotoks. Again, like you mentioned, it's within 2 games right now. So if this is a game that Sylvan Lake can maybe take from Okotoks, just like Lethbridge just did, all of a sudden, the top of the West is going to be insane. And we're looking at a really interesting second half as the All-Star game approaches. And we'll get to the All-Star game in a sec, as I mentioned. But there's a really interesting player right now. We're going to go into our player of the week because, as I mentioned, we're doing the All-Star game announcement today. So we're changing the format a little bit just of where we're talking about stuff. But the player of the week had a really impressive week. And not only that, Joe, but he's kind of been almost, I'm going to say MVP caliber type player for his team. Why don't you tell me about Teemo Aeroscina of the Energy City Cactus Rats?
Let the big dog
Well, and all Yeah, and absolutely, he did eat, and especially a big weekend, right? The Energy City Cactus Rats got to play a couple of games on home turf, kind of getting to return to Spruce Grove. They've been the ultimate road warriors through the course of the season already, and he has been Mr. Consistency. And on the season, he's hitting 402, 3 home runs, 27 RBI, 10 stolen bases, just a model of consistency for that Energy City Cactus Rats team. He's a veteran as well, so he's kind of showing the way for that team with a lot of young players, and they're in a playoff position right now, which is no small feat given that they have been on the road virtually all season long, and it could have been really easy for them to be at the bottom of the standings again like they were last year. And Teemo Aeroscina is probably a big reason as to why they've been able to steady the tide, so to speak, and put together a playoff worthy performance, at least to this point.
Yeah, like you mentioned, this is a team, as of last year, of course, the Edmonton Prospects that just had 12 wins all season. They already got 14 wins, and we're just halfway through the
Mhm.
year. So very impressive, especially like you mentioned, with all the adversity that team's dealing with. And all of their home games, except for two, have all been
Mhm.
in other teams' stadiums. So not an easy feat at all. So huge kudos. And like you said, a big reason is the play of that veteran Teemo Aeroscina. So a huge shout out to him. But as we move along, we're going to talk about a play of the week. And of course, this is brought to you by our good friends at Pile of Bones Brewing. And this one's it's an interesting one because not only is it a
Deal one.
barehanded pitcher double play, it's a walk-off double play.
Mhm.
There you go, Joe.
Courtesy of Easton Corey, Ricky Sanchez, Nash Kroll ends the ball game in, and that's no, like, I don't know. I play slow pitch, so I can't really compare the two, but every so often I catch myself, I can barehand that and immediately regret it the minute it tips off the fingertips. So I can't imagine having the wherewithal to not be like, ouch, that hurts, but also catch it, throw it to online to Ricky Sanchez to start the DP.
Yeah, I have tried myself to snag some stuff in batting practice. I think I get a little cocky and I see a ground ball coming at me and in the batting cages and I try to grab it. And you know that scene from the Mighty Ducks back in the day of the goaltender
Mhm.
who catches Fulton Reed's slap shot and then he takes his glove off and it's like pulsating and it's like bright red.
Yeah.
That's
It's
probably what
on
his
fire.
yeah, that's probably what his hand looked like. But at the end of the day, a great play by Easton Corey of Okotoks to start
Mhm.
that walk-off double play. You don't often see a walk-off double play, so pretty cool stuff there. But Joe, the big reason we're here today, and like I mentioned earlier on in the show, I already said why. But the WCBL All-Star Game is coming up July 19th in Okotoks, and we have the rosters to announce. So I think it's time. Let's look at those now as we bring up. There it is. Look at the logo. They're going to the beach in Okotoks for the All-Star Game by the looks of it,
Mhm.
which is exciting. As we go through, what we're going to do here today is kind of mention each one of these players, and then Joe's going to maybe put a couple highlights on some guys that are really, really exciting, having great seasons, and players to maybe watch out for. Obviously, they're all players to watch for, but we'll get to that. But for the West, we're going to start in the West. The hitters, the batters, the guys who are going to be swinging the bats. Nick Sauvé of the Fort McMurray Giants is going to be the lone catcher. Now, I think there's probably a couple other guys who might have some catching backgrounds that might take an inning or two off of Nick, but he's the lone listed catcher. Teemo Aeroscina, we just talked about, the player of the week for the Energy City Cactus Rats. Darcy Berry having a fantastic season for the Fort McMurray Giants. Not talked about nearly enough, but he is near the top of the home run leaderboards, and he's been a big bopper for the Giants this season. Carter Clairhout, who we love talking about on this show, one of our favorite players to talk about on this show for the Lethbridge Bulls, having a great season as well. Connor Krausen, a guy we talked about in the preseason. We're still talking about him. Hit for the cycle the other day. This guy's a stud. Jaden Flores for the Sylvan Lake Gulls. Rowan O'Connor for the Sylvan Lake Gulls as well. Ricardo Sanchez, we just mentioned his name for the Okotoks Dogs. He was in that play of the week you just saw. And Maddox Shaver rounds out the infielders for the Brooks Bombers. In the outfield, Barry Eisman for the Okotoks Dogs. Ben Fischel for the Brooks Bombers. Parker Husu for the Energy City Cactus Rats. Peyton Matthews has been playing a massive role for the Brooks Bombers this year. Brennan McTavish for the Lethbridge Bulls. Elijah Olaball for the Fort McMurray Giants. And Zane Scansey, who's lighting up scoreboards for the Okotoks Dogs. So, Joe, who for the hitters, who stands out for you? Who's somebody to watch?
Well, obviously, Teemo Aeroscina kind of took a bit of the spotlight there, but I'm going to throw the spotlight on another guy who is quietly in the race for the quadruple crown. Usually, it's the triple crown, but he's actually in the top 6 or 7 for 4 of the main categories, and that's Zane Scanzi of the Okotoks Dogs. He is 6th in batting average at 398. Pardon me. He's tied for, I believe, 2nd in home runs with 7. He's 4th in RBI with 30, and he's tied for 3rd in stolen bases with 16. And so just an all around, kind of like Aracena that way, is all around Mr. Steady as she goes. And I think is going to be a very, very exciting player to watch coming up in Okotoks on July 19th.
Yeah, that's going to be great. Let's bring that graphic up one more time, gentlemen, in the back here. We'll just look at the pitchers now as we start with Levi Abbott, who's been at the top of the pitchers' leaderboards and stats for most of the year for the Lethbridge Bulls. Ash Amerlan for the Fort McMurray Giants. Archer Blumenshane of the Energy City Cactus Rats. Look at these names, Joe. Josh Josh Dolich of the Sylvan Lake Gulls. Oh man, I hope I'm not butchering too many of them. Austin Eaton of the Okotoks Dogs. Brett Getz of the Lethbridge Bulls. He's been near the top of the leaderboard as well for ERA this season. Braden Jardina, another one at the top of the list in that regard. Luke Glenn, another one at the top of the list for that regard. Seth Gurr, another one. They've been at the top of the ERA list all season long. Luke Glenn, of course, for Fort McMurray. Braden Jardina for Energy City. Seth Gurr for Okotoks. Seth Gurr is unavailable. There will be a replacement announced. We'll let you guys know when that happens. It just hasn't quite happened yet. But Seth Gurr has been named an All-Star, and he deserves the recognition accordingly. Heath Hatchkowski of the Brooks Bombers. Tristan Harley of the Energy City Cactus Rats. Matthew McKenzie for Sylvan Lake has been fantastic this year. Seems like every time he takes the mound, they usually get a W when he does. Mickey McClaskey, the best name in the league. Don't at me. There's no argument there. Mickey McClaskey, straight out of the 1950s Bronx Bombers. So the Sylvan Lake Gulls. Maxim Marakovich. I think I said that. Probably not. Lethbridge Bulls, and then Julian Picorni of the Brooks Bombers. Joe, who stands out for you here?
There's 2 on that list. One, obviously, you mentioned him right off the top, Levi Abbott. Yeah. Quietly going about his business in a way where Ian Wilson and I have been chatting back and forth a little bit about whether or not his story is maybe underappreciated right now, because he's in the Triple Crown running as well. He's 5-0, a .29 ERA. He's just been absolutely untouchable, and 40 strikeouts in 31 innings as well. And the other guy that was in the running, I think, for Player of the Week this week and had a great outing was Tristan Harley of the Energy City Cactus Rats, who they returned back to Spruce Grove, and he had a great performance out there. And it's just been, again, Mr. Steady as a pitcher on a team that has been the ultimate road warriors. And I got to give him a lot of credit for steadying the ship, so to speak. And so there's a real good, you mentioned Brett Getz is on that list. There's a lot of really good talent on that pitching staff. And it's an embarrassment of riches, so to speak, but the West Division coaching staff is going to have its hands tied trying to figure out who gets to go where in the order of pitching coming up in just over a week's time.
Yeah, it's going to be a juggling act to make sure everybody try to get everybody in. Obviously, there's a lot of pitchers on that list, and there's only 9 innings to play, so you try to get everybody, 3 or 4 batters, but that's kind of going to be the max usually in games like this, and will be interesting to see, like you said, kind of how they roll that out. But the best part is, and I've coached before, the best part is all of them are good. So you're going to be like, well, we got another good one coming, so it doesn't, it doesn't really scare you that much. There's a good problem to have.
No.
Let's move on to the East Division as we look at their hitters now. You see the whole roster, but we'll talk about the hitters first. A guy for the Swift Current 57s that he's going to be talked about more and more as the season goes along. Luis Ayala has had a great season there for Swift Current. Brady Bai, a local kid for the Regina Red Sox, and Balin Sorensen for the Saskatchewan Berries. 3 catchers in the East compared to 1 in the West. We'll see what happens there. Ryan Dauphiny of the Weyburn Beavers. He's having a great year. Austin Gurney of the Moose Jaw Miller Express. Not surprised there. He's been fantastic all year long. Wilmer Henriquez, he's near the top of the home runs list for the Swift Current 57s. ABM Medina, he's near the league lead in batting average. That's actually a good trend for a lot of these Eastern hitters. A lot of guys at the top of the list in batting averages on this roster. Ethan Menard, top of the league in home runs. Carter Roth, top of the league in batting average. Obviously, Ethan Menard for Saskatoon, Carter Roth for Medicine Hat. Jalen Seward, he's named an All-Star. He will be replaced. It sounds, I don't know if I'm supposed to say this, but it sounds like Matthew Fox for the Red Sox will replace him. Hopefully that's not too much to say, but we'll have more news on that as we go. Thomas Soto for the Moose Jaw Miller Express, and Tyler Vanesti, who's also near the top of the home run leaderboard. In the outfield, Carter Beck for the Saskatoon Berries. Surprise, surprise. Noah Brooks of the Weyburn Beavers, William Edwards, who's having a fantastic year for Moose Jaw, Jeremy Freeman for the Medicine Hat Mavericks, Silas Hilton for the Swift Current 57s, and Jackson Searing, an absolute stud for the Regina Red Sox. So, Joe, again, a lot of the guys at the top of the leaderboards, when you look at home runs, when you look at batting averages on this roster, like you said, for the West pitchers, it's an embarrassment of riches, it looks like, for the Eastern hitters.
And it's funny you mentioned that because there are two guys I kind of flipped, right? Because I went one guy for the hitters in the West and two in the pit for the pitchers in the West. I'm flipping it this time around, going two hitters in the East. I'm going to go off the rails a little bit on this one because I'm going to go with guys who are not just leading in home runs or in batting average, but also stolen bases, which could be an interest, especially when you talk about batting average and guys getting into scoring position. It could be an interesting caveat in all of this thing because I know the players want to put on a show for the fans in Okotoks. And the leaderboard right now has Jeremy Freeman Jr. of Medicine Hat at the top of the board with 17 stolen bases. Not to mention, he's hitting 326 with a home run and 20 RBI to go along with that. So he'll be a real big key piece to that East Division batting order, whether he's starting or whether he's in a relief role. And we know that we're going to be getting the starting lineups for the two teams about a week from now, is my understanding. So stay tuned to the WCBL social medias for all of that. And the other guy who has done almost exactly what Jeremy Freeman Jr. has done, but in 11 fewer games, is Jackson Searing of the Regina Red Sox. He has 16 stolen bases in just 21 games. He's hitting 377 with a couple of home runs and 14 RBI. Just a guy that plays balls to the wall every single night. A guy you can't help but cheer for. He's a former football player to boot. I remember chatting with him at the All-Star game last year. Just a fun guy to watch and is just simply enjoying the opportunity to play ball again. And he played with a really good LSU Shreveport team this past year. It's got a bit of a winning pedigree, obviously. So it's going to be really fun to watch Jackson Searing back for a second year at the All-Star game.
Yeah, that guy's awesome. I think I mentioned the story maybe on an episode a couple weeks ago, but I coached a 15 and under baseball team, and he was out there with them as well. And he's a Kansas kid, and he seems like an athlete through and through. Like you mentioned, a football player as well.
Yeah.
But just the way he spoke to the kids, the way he led the kids as a kind of a guest coach was just so cool to see. He'd be the type of guy where you just sit down and you talk baseball, and then it's like 45 minutes later, and you're like, oh wow, we just talked about like how to pick up a baseball for 45 minutes. So really cool kid, really great head on his shoulders, and he's going to be a fun player to watch at the All-Star game, like you mentioned. Let's look at the pitchers now for the East. As we start with Brody Bornstein of the Swift Current 57s. Luis Diaz, fun fact, my cousin is actually his billet for the Medicine Hat Mavericks. There you go. Small world. Rudy Guardiola for the Moose Jaw Miller Express. Ian Heck, who, I mean, oh my gosh, he's probably going to swing a bat as well in this game. He's a fantastic player for the Weyburn Beavers. Tanner Hosick for the Saskatoon Berries. Blake Johnson, who's been near the top of the leaderboard for ERA all season long for the Regina Red Sox. Logan Kinter for the Weyburn Beavers. Adam Cordy, who's been fantastic. Maybe MVP caliber type of player for the Swift Current 57s. Kai Langford, who's been a stud for the Red Sox this year. Joe Hart for the Weyburn Beavers, putting together a nice season. Nathan Pizio, local kid from the Moose Jaw Miller Express. Xander Roberts for the Medicine Hat Mavericks. Weston Walls is an interesting one for the Moose Jaw Miller Express. Really good tools, really good pitcher. His numbers maybe don't reflect that, but he's having a solid season, and he's a workhorse for Moose Jaw. And then Matt Whitney, of course, Matt Whitney, who led the league in strikeouts last year, and he's now with the Saskatoon Berries. So who stands out for you in the East in terms of the pitching staff?
It's funny you mentioned Matt Whitney because he was a guy that I think has really helped steady that ship in Saskatoon from a pitching perspective. And that's one I want to watch and see how they manage. Like you said, I assume everybody's going to get an inning or three batters kind of thing throughout the course of this one. But Matt Whitney has been the workhorse. He was a workhorse in Fort McMurray, comes down to Saskatoon, does nothing but the same thing. And he provides that steady arm that you're going to be able to get time and time again. It's just continually caught my attention every single time he comes out to the and it's one thing to have the offense that Saskatoon's had, but Saskatoon's been as good as they've been because their pitching staff has been just as good. And a big reason for that is Matt Whitney.
Yeah, exactly. And this it's so interesting, like you said, because every guy's only going to get 3 or 4 batters. It's an all-star game. That's how it is in the major leagues. That's how it's every level. That's how it is. But there's so many guys on here where I'd just love to see them go like 5 or 6 innings and just see how they would fare in a game like this. But you can't do that in a game like this because obviously, you don't want to run out. You don't want to run arms too long. It's not why they're there. But you also want to get everybody in. So it's an interesting kind of dynamic when it comes to all-star games. Now, Joe, this isn't the only stuff that will be announced. Obviously, those are the rosters. Those are the players who have been named. There's going to be some replacements as we go, so keep an eye on all of the channels and all of your team channels for that news as it comes out. But what else has to be announced? There's a couple other things probably into next week that will also be announced. What's that?
Yeah, and just before we get there, I do want to point out one other thing when it comes to the pitching staffs is both teams are going to have to be thinking in the back of their mind about not just the management side from a innings perspective and a batter's perspective and a pitcher's perspective, but also the fact if you think back, I think it was year 1 back in Okotoks, so 2022, it went extra innings and there was a walk off. Ethan He of Sylvan Lake was the hero in that one, and both teams were like, "Hey, we maxed out our pitchers almost. We've only got one guy left. What happens if this goes 13 or 14 innings, right?" And I believe it was Noah Geeky of Okotoks for sure. I can't remember who was on the east side, but Noah Geeky, who's a two-way player, had to come in and do some pitching after the fact as well to get him through some innings. So both teams are going to have to be thinking about that and have that in the back of their mind as well as, yeah, you want everybody to experience it, but you also have to do some game management too. So that'll be fun to watch. On the what's to announce front, we're going to hear from the coaching staffs of both teams as well. Who's going to be, I think the format this year is the same as it has been, which is the divisional champions from the previous year. So Moose Jaw and Okotoks will be the head coach, and then each team in the past has sent one representative. And so some teams like to be able to give their different coaches an opportunity either to take a break or, on the flip side, experience what the All-Star game has in store. So it'll be fascinating to see if it is the case, Lou Pote and Eric Marriott, who they're going to be bringing along for the ride, and who each team is going to be assigning duties for the All-Star game. And then, of course, the big deal. I remember a few people going that first year, "Oh, it's going to be a home run derby. Nobody's going to watch." And there was 2,500 people in the stands the first year, and it has gained more and more and more. Is that home run derby? Fans come out in droves for the 5 o'clock start to the home run derby. I have no doubt the excitement is lingering. Carter Clarehout, as an example, is really excited to hear if he gets to be the Lethbridge Bulls representative. But every team and every player loves that opportunity. Although at the end of it, most guys are like, "My arms are ready to fall off." They're not used to that, so it'll be fun to watch for sure.
Yeah, that's the one thing about home run derbies is everybody wants to show off in it, and then by the end of it, you're like, "Oh my God, can I even play the game tonight?" Because it is the pregame show basically of the All-Star game. But you know what else is going on? Obviously, we have some games to talk about coming up in the next couple of days. So let's focus back to the league itself because the regular season is still obviously chugging along. So let's have a look at Thursday's matchups because as you're watching this, of course, there's going to be some Thursday night games. The Regina Red Sox host the Swift Current 57s at Curry Field. The Sylvan Lake Gulls host the Brooks Bombers at Gulls Field. The Spitz Stadium will be the venue, I should say, for the Lethbridge Bulls and Energy City Cactus Rats. That is this week's WCBL Game of the Week. So we will have a pregame show for you later tonight over on our YouTube channel as well. If you're watching on Flow College, there will be a 25 to 30-minute pregame show. So make sure you tune in for that. Legacy Dodge Field will be the host venue of the Fort McMurray Giants taking on the Okotoks Dogs. Saskatoon's going to be in Weyburn to take on the Beavers at Tom Lang Park. And Moose Jaw is making the trip to Medicine Hat to take on the Mavericks. And then on Friday, you'll see that the Okotoks remains in Fort Mac to take on the Giants. Brooks and Sylvan Lake do battle again at Gulls Field. The same matchup at Spitz Stadium, Energy City at Lethbridge. Saskatoon remains in Weyburn, and Swift Current heads to Medicine Hat to take on the Mavericks. So what's got your eye? What's catching your eye for this week as we roll along here? It could be into the weekend as well, Joe. But what's catching your eye for this week?
There's two things on my bucket list for this weekend, and we're going to start with Weyburn at home to Saskatoon tonight. There's going to be a very special guest as Jamie Campbell of Sportsnet Blue Jays Central is doing the yearly visit to the WCBL. He was rocking the Weyburn Beavers hat during the broadcast a couple of weeks back. I think it was a Canada Day broadcast with John Morosi. So Jamie Campbell's going to be in Weyburn. I believe it's on Thursday to see the Saskatoon Berries in town, and then he's heading down the road to go see the Saskatoon Berries at home on Saturday as well. So a bit of a, I'm sure they're going to roll out the red carpet for one Jamie Campbell, who's been nothing but a staunch advocate for the WCBL and baseball in Canada. So welcome to the West again, Jamie, and his son as well, Jack. So very cool to see that. And the other thing, not necessarily on the docket WCBL wise, but something we should all be keeping an eye on Sunday and Monday is the MLB draft. And last year was a banner year for the WCBL with 13 players being selected. Most notably, Nathan Flewelling of the Sylvan Lake Gulls was taken in the 3rd round. Who's going to get the call this year? Can the WCBL meet the 13 numbers? I don't know. I wish I had a crystal ball. There's a couple of names that really kind of stick out to me, I think, when I look at the list of players. One, Max Hartman, formerly of the Okotoks Dogs, has been ripping it up in the MLB Draft League this year. So really interesting to see how he does in that. And there's another player, and the name's escaping me right now, with formerly of the Edmonton Prospects or now the Energy City Cactus Rats. There's another young man that is, name's not ringing a bell for me right now. But there's a couple of WCBL alumni in the MLB Draft League right now, and of course there's young high schoolers who are on the affiliated list with teams right now. I think a Tim Piazentine with the Okotoks Dogs who might get the call. He's been rocketing up the depth chart. So a lot of eyes are going to be on the MLB draft coming up in just a few days here.
Of course. And I guess the best part about that is, Joe, we'll report about it next week when we talk again. So appreciate your time. Obviously, like I mentioned, guys, everybody give a round of applause digitally to Joe as he's joining us from Lake Country today. The connection was perfect. We got it all working great. So really appreciate you joining us. Get back to the beach, Joe. And enjoy your time over there. But I appreciate you joining us today.
Always a pleasure, Clark. Thanks to the crew in the back. And we'll see you all next week.
Perfect. That's exactly what I was going to say. So we'll end it there. Enjoy the baseball this week, everybody. And we'll see you next week on the WCBL Report.